Hello! The inspiration of this video was one of my students, Rafael, who asked me to record a video about pawn breaks. He had two questions: when to do a pawn break and how to prepare it. Then I started to make a research, also analyzed many of his games, and then I planned to make a 1 hour long video. But then I realized that would be maybe too long, so I decided to make instead a few shorter videos. This is the first of that series. And in this video we will discuss the fundamentals about the pawn breaks, and we will see also a few examples of different openings. So let's start. The first question is actually, what is a pawn break? So normally a pawn break, it is a pawn move which attacks one or two of the opponent's pawns in the same time. Let's say like in this position, actually white plays d4, actually attacks both the e5 and the c pawns. So why do we call a pawn break actually a pawn break? I think because it is similar like when you have a war and you want to fight against a castle and you want to actually break the walls. So actually after like this d4 move, if black captures, with c takes d4, c takes d4, e takes d4, knight takes d4, actually there became like some kind of walls, some kind of holes on the walls of the castle. So like there are these files, the c and the e5s, where there are no more pawn, which was here on c5 and e5, which was kind of making safer the king and all other pieces in the black camp now disappeared. So white was able to break some holes on the walls and use them maybe for a future attack. Okay, so this was our first question: what is a pawn break? Next question is actually, why to make a pawn break? I realized three main reasons why we make a pawn break. The first reason can be like, let's see a concrete example. Like we have this position, and actually white makes the move e4. As we said, our definition is like a pawn move which attacks one or two of the opponent's pawns. So this e4 pawn actually attacks the d5 pawn. So this is a pawn break. And why to make it? So it can be for fighting for a square. So actually after exchange, capturing on e4, white got the control on the e4 square. So this is one reason, fighting for a square. The second reason can be to opening a file. Actually in this example we opened the e5 for rooks and actually for a queen if the queen goes to e2. Plus also we open the diagonal for the bishop. So after e4 there are no more pawns. Pawn on d5 which breaks the power of the bishop, and it can be the bishop can attack the c6 pawn in the future when the knight goes away. And the third reason is to actually weakening the opponent's pawn position, the pawn structure, because before e4 actually black had a nice center pawn on d5, but after e4 and after the exchange there is no more nice center pawn for black. So the three reasons why we make a pawn break: get control of a square, opening up files and diagonals, plus the third option and the idea, the reason is to weakening the opponent's pawn position. Okay, so this was the second thing. First was why, the what, the second is the why, and the third is when. And here comes one of the questions of Rafael: when to do it. So I think the best moment to do it when it is well supported by other pieces. So that's very important. Like here example, the e4 pawn break was very well supported by this knight and by the queen. Also in our first example when we played the d4 move, it was really well supported by a knight, bishop and the queen. Okay, so this is the when, and the fourth question is how. So how to prepare it. So I think the best way to prepare it, if we going back from this to this position, it shows also. So develop your pieces to those squares from where they will have benefit from the opening up the position, benefit from the break, so they will be able to use the opened phials, open diagonals, and the square which will be maybe conquered, or they will benefit from the weakened pawn structure of the opponent. Okay, so we discussed the what, the why, the when, and the how to prepare. And after these fundamentals, I would like to show you some concrete pawn breaks from different typical openings. So let's start maybe with one of the most popular opening. It's called the Queen's Gambit. So after it, you can go also from the beginning, d4, d5, and white plays c4, attacking the opponent d5 pawn. So this is a pawn break. And the idea of this pawn break is actually if black captures, then white gets control over the e4 square because the d5 pawn is not defending anymore, so he can play e4, getting the great control of the center, plus also actually he may get the control of the c4 square after recapturing. Okay, let's see the next opening, which another very typical opening, a classical one. It's called the King's Gambit. After e4, e5, white plays actually f4, immediately creating a pawn break. Actually, the idea is very similar to the Queen's Gambit. It's just the other side of the board. So if black captures, then white wants to play d4 to build up a very strong center, and then after recapturing the pawn, also have control of the f4 square. Here d4 is not that good then after the exchange, because now black still have control, and so he can capture that pawn. So that's why after f4, kind of removing the defender, white can play d4. So let's go for the next opening, which is the Scotch Opening. It will be after e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and here comes the Scotch Opening, which is d4, another pawn break. The idea of this pawn break is after the capturing knight takes d4, so white got control over the d4 square, nice center square. Even if black captures it, white captures again, so he still maintains control of that square and put there a very powerful piece. So this was the Scotch game. Let's see the next one, which will be the Italian Opening. So e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5. So both white and black prepares and develops. Prepare the development of his other pieces and prepares actually castling. So here white plays c3, knight f6. As you see, black can already castle in the next move. And here comes the first pawn break of the game, is d4. So actually white attacks the black pawn, e5, offers the exchange. And if black exchanges, then white builds up a nice center. But let's continue a few more moves because we will have actually one more pawn break. So bishop b4 check, bishop d2, bishop takes d2, knight takes d2, and here black can make a really strong pawn break, d5. Actually, the idea of this pawn break is to get control of the d5 square, which was controlled by the pawn and the bishop, but after capture, knight captures back, and now black has a really nice knight there. Even if it captures, then maintains the powerful piece, a queen, in the center. So this was the Italian game. Let's move on and see the next one, which will be actually the Scandinavian Defense. So white, actually let's flip the board because we want to look maybe this from black's point of view first. So e4, c6, d4, d5. So black makes a pawn break, offer the exchange of the d5 pawn for the e4 pawn. And the idea of this d5 move actually fighting for the pawn, the e4 pawn, and for the e4 square. So after, if white has different options, can just maintain actually the control of the e4 square, capture, he can recapture with the knight, but also he can do, let's see if we flip the board, can capture back, and make himself a pawn break with c4. The idea of this move is something similar like the queen's gambit, to fight for the center square, so d5 square, plus fighting for the c4. If he captures, then white has a really nice bishop on c4. So let's move on for the next opening, which will be actually the French defense. After e4, black plays e6, white plays d4, and here comes the first pawn break. Black to play d5. Again, a pawn move, so we said the pawn break is a move which attacks one or two of the opponent's pawns. So actually this attacks the e4 pawn. And the idea is to, capture it and get control of the e4 square. Here white has several options. We will see what happens if he plays e5, because black has actually here again a nice and strong pawn break, c5. The idea of this pawn break is to actually get control of the important d4 square. Plus another idea is to remove the defender of the e5 pawn after the example if capture exchange, then the e5 pawn would be weaker because black can attack it with knight c6. The next move. Okay, let's move on because we have a few more openings. So let's see, the next one will be actually the Sicilian defense. e4, c5, knight f3, d6, and actually the open variation of the Sicilian defense, where white plays d4, makes a pawn break, fighting for the center square. Black should actually capture this, other way white will move forward with d5, gaining more space. So normally black captures, and then white recaptures, and actually he got a really nice knight in the center. Okay, let's move on. Another variation of the Sicilian defense, actually when after e4, c5, white plays c3, this is called Alapin variation, where actually black can make a really nice pawn break immediately with actually d5, fighting for the d5 square. White usually captures, and then black captures back and has a really nice queen in the center. And here let's move on by one more move. another pawn break now by white. White plays d4. Actually wants to exchange the c5 pawn, which controlling the d4 square. So after exchange, now white has a nice pawn in the center and have influence over c5 and e5 squares. Okay, we have 3 more openings. Next one is the Scandinavian Defense. Actually, this is the opening where black immediately, actually on move 1, makes a pawn break. So after e4, black plays d5, immediately fighting for the d5 square and for the e4 square. White usually captures it, and then black can recapture with the queen, have a nice centralized queen, and also have influence over the center. So this is the Scandinavian Defense. Let's see 2 more. Okay, now another defense, but now with black against d4 opening. d4, knight, it's called the Grünfeld defense. d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, and actually the first move of the Grünfeld defense is a pawn break. So black plays d5. So starts the fight against the center. Wants to have the d5 square, conquer the d5 square, which currently controlled by the center, by the c4 pawn. So if he captures, now black can capture back and having a really nice knight. Of course, white will fight for the center, plays e4, then now knight takes c3, b takes c3, continue the development, bishop g7, knight f3, and here we have one more pawn break. Black plays c5, actually again attacking the pawn, offering the exchange, and the goal of this pawn break actually weakening the structure, because if it would capture, then it would make also isolated and double pawns, and also actually it's not only weaken the pawn structure, but it would also open up a diagonal for this bishop, so and very concretely would win the exchange after this capture. So c5 is to weaken the pawn structure, also open up file and the diagonal. Okay, and the final opening where we will discussing pawn breaks. Here comes the King's Indian Defense. Actually, let me flip the board here. d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, and here actually instead of d5, which we looked before, that was the Grünfeld defense. Black continues to develop with bishop g7, and white here plays e4 just to prevent d5, so there will be no more Grünfeld defense here. d6, and we are in the King's Indian Defense. Knight f3, castling, bishop e2, and here comes the first pawn break with e5. With e5 actually black wants to fight for the d4 square, plus he may be happy to open up the diagonal for the bishop after capturing on d4. Yeah, white has here several options. We will see if he plays castling. Here we look again several other things. Knight c6, just fighting still for the square. White deciding to push the pawn to attack knight d5, knight e7, and here we got a really nice and special structure. White plays knight e1. Actually, the idea of this knight e1 move to play knight d3 to prepare one more pawn break with c5, fighting to break this nice pawn chain by force if black captures it. Here black plays knight d7, little bit similar idea, to actually kind of blocking this advance, plus ready to go forward on the other side. 97, 93, and here comes a pawn break with f5. The idea of this pawn break is actually to open up the 5 for the rook, plus also fighting for this important center square on e4. Let's continue maybe a few more moves. Yeah, usually white will defend with f3, and black may attack the e4 pawn, and later actually he may play f4, and then with g5, g4, going for another pawn break with the idea of opening the g5 and attacking the white king. Yeah, let's go back a few more moves to show a little bit another idea with another pawn break. So here, instead of knight e1, actually white can also play b4, a very aggressive option, with the idea of going for the c4, c5 pawn break. And here black has several options. Actually can play also like knight d7 to fight for that, against that pawn break. But also there's a very aggressive option for black to make himself immediately another pawn break with a5. The idea of this move is actually, this is indirectly fighting for the c5 square, because he is removing the defender of the c5 square. So white should capture, recapture, and then these pawn breaks make it harder to do. But still in the future probably white will do something like a4 and bishop a3 and prepares that break, or even sometimes knight d3, knight b3, going for this c5 pawn break. Okay, so we looked several actual examples about the pawn breaks in the opening and see a little bit of the middle game. We laid out the fundamentals. So we first discussed what is a pawn break. You know, it is normally it's a pawn move which attacks one or two of the opponent's pawns, breaking the wall and try to create some holes in the wall of the opponent's castle, of his territory, his border. And we discussed of why to make a pawn break. So we has like three main options. One is to fight for a square. The second why is to open up files or diagonals, and the third is to weaken the pawn structure of the opponent. We discussed also when to make actual pawn break. So we want to make a pawn break when it's well supported by our pieces. And the fourth question and answer was how to prepare it. So usually we try to put the pieces to squares where they will benefit from the pawn break. So when it will open up files or diagonals or open up a new square, they will be able to use it very well. Okay, thank you for watching this video, and be ready for the next one, where we will actually look some very concrete examples about pawn breaks in the middle game. Okay, thank you for watching. Hope to see you very soon.